Hi everyone, and apologies for being a bit late. Had a few technical glitches. Anyway, this is Philosophy Film Club, and we're here to talk about Game of Thrones Season 5. Hi everyone for joining us, and wow, what a season this was. I think it's had mixed feelings amongst, but I really enjoyed it actually, and I I found it quite enjoyable. I think a lot of people who read the book struggled with it at times with the way the story went in all sorts of pear-shaped ways. But yeah, so I don't know how we're going to start off this call. I mean, I had a couple of sort of ideas that I was just talking about with Bailey before we started. And we could either approach this by talking about characters, or we could talk about maybe episodes, or we could talk about themes in the season. So I don't know if anybody's got any burning yearning they want to really talk about. First off, I mean, is there anything that really somebody wants to get off their chest about this season at all?
Hey, Pat, and I just wanted to say hello to all our listeners and to the people that joined us in the Hangout today. We have Logan, Pim, and Pim is going to be more present a little bit later. And then we have Robin with us today. And yeah, I mean, as we talked before, this Hangout is going to be more unstructured. And I don't know, my idea is just let the conversation flow freely. And since you asked me if I have anything to say, I just want to start with, I cannot believe they killed Jon Snow.
Yeah.
That was the ending of the season finale was quite a shock for everybody, and I wonder why it was such a shock for me also, because we should be pretty used to the killing of the main characters by now. And I still couldn't seem to wrap my head around that.
Well, that last episode, my heart was in my mouth from beginning to end. So by the time it got to Jon Snow being killed, it was like, oh, okay. That kind of I guess so many people had died in that episode, right? I think I did have a list of them, but I think there's about 5 or 6 main characters that all got bumped off in that particular episode. So yeah, I guess it was a bit of a surprise, wasn't it? I suppose. I mean, I kind of knew it was coming because I'd heard about Ollie's petulance with John's kind of liking of the wildlings. I think someone had mentioned that from the books or something. And not that he was going to kill him or anything, but that there was some kind of betrayal or something gonna take place. So when I heard, what was it? Was it he talked about, he tried to kid him about his brother, or I think it was a brother or stepbrother or something. I can't remember the guy's name, but he was dead. I'm pretty sure he died in the first season, if I remember right. And I can't remember the name. If anyone else can remind me.
No, it doesn't really ring a bell.
What were you talking about?
Sorry.
Which person?
When Ollie came in to tell Jon Snow, oh, this guy, he's arrived. And it was
yeah.
Brother,
his uncle.
His uncle Benjen.
Uncle, yeah.
But the greatest thing about that is that in the recap for the episode, they had Benjen there, and people have been wondering what happened to Benjen for 18 years since the first book came out, and they had Benjen in the recap. And then they just tricked their viewers as much as Jon Snow.
Yeah, I know. And it's so you just knew it was like, oh yeah, okay, I can tell what's going to go on here. Ollie, Benji, it's like, yeah, this is definitely a hoax, put up. So I wasn't too surprised when he got a knifing. The only thing I was surprised at, where the hell was Ghost? Supposed to be protecting his ass.
Funny thing about that. When that happened in the book, first of all, it was much less of a planned thing in the book.
Right.
There's a lot more chaotic stuff going on. Like the giant was going crazy and stuff, and it was more of an immediate breaking point.
Mm.
But at the very end of the chapter, John just whispers "ghost" before he dies, or doesn't. I don't know.
Right.
Like
Okay.
he just whispers "ghost" and then the chapter ends.
Right. Right.
Yeah, Logan, you told me before the show started that you read the books, and now I haven't read the books, but I read a few articles online that were talking about the books compared to the script of the show, and a lot of people were complaining about the absence of the direwolves, and they were saying that the direwolves are much more present in the books, and they play a much more important role than they did in the TV show. And they've been absent, almost absent for the last 2 seasons. Ghost made an appearance, a brief appearance in this one, but that was it. What can you tell us about the direwolves in the books compared to their presence in the show?
Well, all of the Stark children are actually able to warg into their ghost or into their wolves. It's not just Bran. Like Bran and Rickon, I think they've said that they can do it in the show. Clearly, Bran can, but Jon is controlling ghosts quite a bit in the books, and Arya has dreams about her wolf. Sansa's wolf died in the very beginning, so she can't. And then it's Robb Stark never gets a point of view chapter, but it's very heavily implied that he can also warg into his ghost, into his wolf. I keep saying ghost.
Well, yeah, and speaking about Jon Snow, I also read a few articles with some reactions to his death, and you know what they say, the first stage of grief is denial, and I guess that's where I'm at. So allow me to ask this question. Have we really seen the last of Jon Snow? There are many theories, and people seem to have a lot of ideas about how to bring Jon Snow back. However, I'm thinking, Lady Melisandre, she arrived at Castle Black, and usually I'm the kind of Game of Thrones fan that dislikes the magic part of the show, but just this one time, just this one time, I find myself hoping for a magic trick that Lady Melisandre might pull to bring Jon Snow back. What do you guys think?
Well, that's certainly what I've read from really avid fans. They've talked about Melisandre potentially doing something like that, but I think it's wishful thinking, personally. But what do you think, Logan?
Well, the show made me start to doubt just because of what Kit Harington has said in interviews and stuff, but it could just be lies. And also, he's been spotted in Belfast. But by the books, just by the books, it's almost guaranteed that he's not dead or will come back to life.
Oh wow, that's amazing news!
All of the evidence. There's a lot of evidence that he's the most important character in the entire series.
Oh right, yes.
Yeah, but as far as I read, and this is just hearsay, in the books he might come back as part of Ghost, not necessarily as Jon Snow.
Yeah, because he did whisper Ghost right before the end of the chapter, and it's been shown in a different chapter that wargs can live on, and after their human bodies have died, their consciousness can live on inside the animal that they control.
Oh, so I see now. Right. So that's how they might swing it. Anyway, we shouldn't really be giving too many spoilers away, probably, but yeah. So it does, but it is interesting though. So maybe the talk of it is more true than I thought. But I mean, one of the funniest talking about deaths was, well, I say funniest, but one of the most perhaps left slightly open. Another one that fans have been constantly debating about was Stannis, because of course they never really showed his head being chopped off and all sorts, and there seemed to be some implication that may not have happened or something, and again I think the writer said no he's they didn't want to show it because they thought it was too gratuitous. which I found kind of strange, given that given the Arias scene, which was as gratuitous as you could have possibly get, I guess. But so I don't know how true that is. That was something I just read from YouTube comments, but it was kind of left a little bit open ended. I got the sense that there was going to be something going back to that. I mean, whether or not Brienne was taken out or whatever, there was certainly a kind of it kind of left it as sort of slightly open ended.
Yeah, but I'm thinking also from a marketing standpoint, they might have left it hanging like that so they can stimulate these theories that they know will circulate after the TV show is over. So they want to, they might want to stimulate conversation and.
I see.
I don't know. That's what I would do, knowing the following that the Game of Thrones has, and how crazy some of the fans can get about about the show. And speaking about the fans, I just wanted to read you guys a few reactions to the season finale. I got here some of the best Twitter posts right after the show ended, and some of them are really, really funny. One guy said, "There's really no one left to kill on Game of Thrones. Next season, they start killing viewers at home through the TV." Another one said, "My Game of Thrones theory. Everyone dies. Literally, every person dies, and then they wake up on the island, and that's when Lost starts." And another guy said, "I think I need to watch Schindler's List a few times to cheer me up after tonight's Game of Thrones finale." And of course, Game of Thrones has ruined my life. And Bran, Rickon, and Hodor had a great season, which they did. And one of the best ones, in my opinion, is, "Why doesn't George Martin use Twitter? Because he probably killed all 140 characters."
That one's an old one.
Oh yeah.
I must admit though, I don't suffer from the same character loss that lots of people do. I think ever since they killed off Ned Stark at the very I say the beginning, at the end of the first season, I was like, okay, don't get attached,
This is how it's gonna go from now on.
Although I guess I probably am slightly attached to Tyrion, which I think everyone is a little bit. You can't but help, It's always a little guy you're going to sort of root for every time, I guess. And although funny enough, he wasn't particularly. There wasn't a lot of Tyrion in this season at all. What there was pretty good though, but yeah.
Yeah, indeed. Go ahead.
A thing I've noticed about the characters dying is that the show, I think, has gone from a sort of realistic universe to a malevolent universe.
Right.
Because in early on, it was just there's no magical rescue for the characters who have gotten themselves into bad situations, but now it's the bad guys get to magically win.
Right.
And is that something that is that trend also appearing in the books, or is this just something that the TV show pulled?
It's really just in the show, as far as I can tell. Especially with Ramsay, who can cut through 50 of the best Ironborn warriors without a shirt on.
Yeah. Yeah, they're determined to keep the psychopath in, aren't they? For some reason, I don't know what. I mean, I guess actually doesn't. I mean, if I remember right, because this is technically this season was technically the end of the books, and I presume Ramsay is the Lord of Winterfell and all that by the end of the books.
Yeah, he's really not all that great at stuff in the books. He goes hunting and stuff, but he doesn't really do much other than torture Theon and be a psychopath.
Right. So he's not very good at what? He's not very good at the politics stuff.
Well, yeah, he doesn't really fight all that much.
Right.
As far as I can remember, I think he just goes on
He's
hunts.
more of the mental evil kind of guy that will wear you out through mental torture over a long period of time, not the sword swinging fighter.
Yeah, he's psychological as well, of course. So
Yeah.
he kind of has people have a psychological fear of him. Yeah.
Yeah, so a lot of characters died. I have a list here: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 major and kind of side characters died in this season. And if you want, I can do a short recap.
What's this? 13?
Yep.
I didn't think there was that many, but yeah, go on.
Mance Rider, he was the leader of the wildlings.
Right,
He was burnt at the stake by Stannis and killed by Jon Snow's merciful arrow. And then there's Mossador. I didn't know his name. I had to Google it. He was one of the leaders of the slave rebellion. If you remember, he was sentenced to death by Daenerys for murdering one of the sons of the Harpy that was awaiting trial.
Right.
Which pretty much was what inflated that conflict even more. And then Janus Slint, he was the ex-royal guard who was decapitated by Jon Snow for disobeying the orders.
So you'll talk about throughout the whole season. Sorry.
Yeah, throughout the whole season. Yeah,
I was talking the last episode, but yeah.
And then Sir Barristan Selmy, who was killed in the battle by the Sons of the Harpy when he was there fighting with Torconudo. Then Meister Targaryen, he died, and he was one of the very few characters that actually died of old age. It's nice to see somebody dying of old age in their own bed, surrounded by friends.
He's been looking like he's on his last legs for the last 4 seasons. Though,
yeah. It's like, when is he gonna die? And of course, poor Shireen Baratheon.
Right.
She died as a sacrificial offering to the god of life. Oh man, that scene was wretched.
That was pretty brutal, yeah. And it's funny because I was talking with somebody else about that today, and it's one of the biggest complaints actually, which is interesting because I hadn't actually seen a lot of discussion about Shireen at all. But it just seemed implausible. I don't know if I'm not so sure. I don't know particularly about the book. Maybe Logan can help here, but I don't. I'm not so sure that actually happens in the book, does it? That he doesn't actually sacrifice her in the book. I'm fairly sure. I could be wrong, of course.
I'm fairly certain that in the book, Shireen and her mother are still at Castle Black.
Yeah, that's right. So it was a kind of and given his history of protecting his daughter, defending his daughter, it just seemed like an act of desperation that just didn't seem to fit with how he was approaching this whole business of of attacking the Boltons, etc. It was like he suddenly got last minute nerves, and then everyone deserts him after it's happened. And
I think this was another thing like the killing of Jon Snow that was sort of a shortcut in storytelling that skipped out a lot of important stuff.
Well, you would think so, yeah. At the very least, it would seem that it just seemed like I was missing something in that particular between. I mean, I'm guessing in some ways maybe it was planned ahead of leaving Winterfell, perhaps, because he was so insistent that she should come.
Oh, you mean leaving Castle Black?
Yeah, leaving Castle Black. Yeah, rather. Sorry, yeah, not. So it would make sense, perhaps then, I suppose. But then was and I guess it would make sense that they wouldn't necessarily talk about it. But but yeah, it just didn't sort of connect, and so when you sort of, it was that final moment when you saw the cavalry coming over the hill edge. You was like, oh no, I'm going to use a rude word here. He's fucked. It's like,
Yeah.
you just could not. It's like, it was like it reminded me of one of those. I can't remember the comedian now. It's like, oh god,
It was a bring me my brown pants moment.
yeah. It was like, of course, Stannis, stood his ground, of course, as he would. But given that he has such great, he's meant to be a great warrior, a great sort of leader of men, and all this sort of stuff. It just all fell to pieces for him so rapidly and quickly, and he was just making one bad decision after the next.
And I loved it. I mean, that's what it should have happened, because this guy was a fanatic, a religious fanatic, and if he would have been victorious, I would have been pissed. And I just wanted to mention that religion got a big spotlight in this last season with the portrayal of the destruction of the children of the offspring. And the theme of sacrificing your own children for the gods.
Yeah.
And then the other theme of religion gone out of hand when Cersei, one of the representatives of power, when she was trying to use religion for her own whatever schemes she had planned, and it blew up in her face pretty badly, I would say.
Right.
So religion got a pretty good spotlight, and I liked the way it was portrayed in this last season.
Yeah, not forgetting the sparrows, of course. Those evil mofos.
Well, yeah.
Yeah. That
the
was
High Sparrow, who I mean, Cersei got him into a position of power, and then what happened?
Suddenly usurped by them.
She fell victim to her own attempt to use religion against her enemies.
Right. So is Pim there as he stops eating now?
Yes, I am. Hello.
Hey, Pim.
How are you?
I'm very good, thank you. Yeah. Yourself?
Yeah, I'm well, thank you.
Good.
So what do you think about this last season?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Well, that's what we're here for.
I felt like it was a bit anticlimactic.
Yeah, you said that.
Yeah, and I'm not exactly sure why I feel that way, because when you talk about it just now and how many things have happened, and especially how many people have died, yeah, that is a lot. But I still feel like I'm missing something that was in the books but wasn't in the series, and I'm not sure what that is. So that's a completely unhelpful comment. I'm sorry about that.
Well, no, actually, I was going to say, because you're right. Some people have said, and I actually had some really good conversations with people who read the books, much like you, and they said they were fine with the story, deviating in a different way, and because it gave an opportunity to do something different, etc. Do something more eclectic, more interesting with the characters, more problematic. Like, I mean, one instance would be the case of Brienne, right, and who found Stannis, right. But she could have been. You could have had a storyline around Stannis, rather around Brienne saving Sansa, and then coming across Stannis along the way, with the Boltons chasing them behind, and of course this would have been this dilemma for her potentially, for dealing with her oath, for Renly and stuff like that, but also her oath for protecting. And it could have been an interesting story, and I thought, yeah, that's true. It could have been a little bit more diverse, perhaps,
stuff like that. Sorry to interrupt, but just one more thing that I felt particularly disappointed with is, for example, Stannis' arrival at Winterfell. That was, I mean, it was in a way, it was good because there was this entire build-up of him having all this struggle, and it turned out to be a completely wasted effort, like not even close.
Oh yeah, it was almost like, what the hell are you doing there?
Yeah, I mean, it's historically, I don't think that there have ever been a battle like that where an attacker comes up to a castle and they're like just laughing at it, and and riding out to meet them and encircling them.
Right.
Matter of 4-1 or something. So
they were getting ready for a siege. They weren't really expecting a battle.
But they were still outnumbered by the defenders 4-1. Like that doesn't happen normally. Defenders are supposed to be outnumbered 10-1, and then that's about like equal from my very limited understanding of medieval sieging.
Oh yeah, I know that firsthand because I used to play Airsoft, which is like a war game. So you have to. The attackers definitely have to be like at least 4-5-1 to even be able to play. Otherwise, the game is over in like 2 minutes.
I think that was another one of the complaints, that where did all these soldiers come from in Winterfell? Where were they stationed, etc. So there was some sort of complaints about the reality of that as well.
Well, it's what Logan mentioned, how it's like almost unfair what the bad guys can get away with that the good guys can't, and it felt maybe a bit more like that this season. Like it was in previous seasons, it was everyone gets their due, and now it just feels like the good guys get their due. For as far as we can even talk about good guys.
I don't think there are any good guys and bad guys in the Game of Thrones. I mean, everybody's floating in some sort of a gray area.
Well, let's just say that there are lawful evil and chaotic evil characters.
Yeah.
Evil and even more evil. It's like the U.S. elections.
When people talk about all the gray characters, something I think about is I don't remember Jon Snow actually doing anything that would put him in the sort of gray category. I can't really think of anything that he did.
Well, I don't know. I mean, it depends on the standard and the principles that you apply. Decapitating a man for just verbally challenging you, according to my principle, is kind of evil.
Yeah, I guess that was definitely a grey area, I guess, but perhaps not as grey as, say, some of the grey areas of other characters. But yeah, I literally just watched that because I only got to watch I was hoping to watch back to back the whole season. Today I ended up being distracted by my landlady to do something else. But that was the last thing I watched actually today. I think it was in the third episode when he finally chopped his head off. So, and there was also a sort of part of Jon Snow's, I think, reasoning for doing it was he just despised, loathed his weakness. I think.
Yeah, he didn't want to lose face
and he
in front
also
of.
is part of the reason Ned Stark's dead.
Right. Okay. Of course, yeah. I'm gonna have to go way back. Of course, that's all those stories way back. Of course, I forget that are always interlinked.
So earlier I mentioned it as half a bit of a joke about chaotic evil versus lawful evil, but I do think that's kind of what it boils down to. Like we would say Joffrey was a particularly evil character, and that's part of, for example, because he beheaded Ned Stark. And Ned Stark, of course, beheaded someone himself. So that doesn't really... The difference is not in that. We still kind of see Ned Stark as one of the good guys, and that's because Ned Stark was consistent with his own laws. There is a law that you can't desert, and if you do that, I can't desert from the Night's Watch, and if you do that, then the Lord of the North will behead you. And even though that's of course a horribly evil thing to do, it is at least consistent with the law.
With the rules, yeah.
Yeah, but if you look at the evil characters, or the ones that everybody feels are really evil, that's more because they don't really follow laws that much. They just do what suits them best. And so, for example, Joffrey felt like it was an opportune moment to behead Ned Stark, and so he did that. And similarly, the Boltons, they took their chances with Robb Stark at a wedding, and that's not a particularly lawful thing to do. So that's why I don't think that. That's why I do think that the distinction between lawful and chaotic could be useful to kind of understand why we still feel like some characters are good and others aren't, even though they're all piss evil.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Definitely, the Starks come off as the better family, of course.
So what do you guys think? What's in your opinion the most evil character in the Game of Thrones?
George R.R. Martin.
That's the best answer. I didn't even expect it. Oh, yeah. What about the second most evil?
Just smashing all the characters like a little rock.
Yeah, that was a great conversation between Jaime and Tyrion, and it was very meta.
Yeah.
I would pick Ramsay. I would think Ramsay.
I think Cersei did a pretty good job this season as well. At times.
So why would you pick Ramsay or Cersei?
Well, Ramsay, because I mean there is evil that is portrayed as physical violence, and then there is evil who operates across a long time span and just destroys the person from the inside, destroys mentally and emotionally, transforms, like he transformed Theon into, he's not even human anymore. So he's got that evil power where, I mean, without any bravery, because, you decapitate somebody, you do it in front of everybody, you fight in a battle. Those are, like you said, some sort, following some sort of laws. However, he's a psychopathic operator who also takes great pleasure from ruining, completely destroying people.
Yeah, I guess he's very similar to Joffrey, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'd say. They're on a par.
Yeah, but see, Joffrey came across more like a young, spoiled brat that wasn't totally conscious of his evil. Well, where Ramsay comes across as a person that is not just conscious of his evil side, but he's actually proud of it and enjoys it.
Yeah, but didn't Joffrey do that? Like, he had those prostitutes in his bedroom, and he was like, I don't know, he was getting them to
but
beat
he was more like an impulsive killer, like on a whim of the moment, while Ramsay is premeditated, calm, and calculated psychopath. Which, by the way, I love the actor. I think he's doing a great job with that character.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's interesting that because the show likes to make you forget about some of the evil things that characters have done in the past, that they have to add this sexual violence to characters to remind you that they're bad. Like Meryn Trant.
Oh yeah, mm-hmm. That was pretty grim actually. That last 2 episodes with him. That was something you didn't. At least I can't recall from the previous seasons. I don't recall him really knowing much about him at all. And
he hits Sansa sometimes.
Yes, that's true. Now you remind me now suddenly. Yes, and yeah, so that was kind of fairly shocking. Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, what was shocking to me is to see was seeing the reaction that followed that rape scene with Sansa. Uh,
Oh, you mean
everybody was
public reaction?
the public reaction. Everybody was so outraged about that rape scene, which is not even by far the most violent.
It wasn't, was
Um,
it?
yeah, I mean, if you take the princess's Stannis' daughter's sacrifice, that was, to me, I think it was one of the most brutal scenes in the movie. And I looked for some public reactions. There were some, but none compared to Sansa's rape.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, the rape culture is all up in arms, but the child sacrifice for religion, it's still somehow acceptable.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, even just comparing it to like what had happened to Theon, right? I mean, the dreadful stuff that he put Theon through. That you kind of, again, you didn't really see it, but you kind of knew what was happening. And Sansa, I guess, it didn't really. I mean, obviously, rape is rape, of course, and it was but yeah, it was nothing quite as gratuitous or as heinous as what happened
Well,
to Theon or what happened to Shireen.
that just goes to say that a woman gets raped, everybody loses their mind, but a guy's gets chopped off, and that's a pretty cool scene,
Right.
you know.
Doesn't even touch the size, no.
Well, I think it's a little bit more complicated. I do agree with you, but Sansa was one of the most innocent characters in the series so far. So to have such an innocent character who's been bullied around for 3, 4, 5 seasons, have that happen to her, that was pretty gruesome. And it can be pretty gruesome just upon itself. Like, we don't have to compare scenes. It's just weird indeed that the one scene triggers so much outrage, whereas the other doesn't.
Yeah,
and I would have loved to see all the scenes trigger some outrage.
Yeah, of course we're oversimplifying things here, and I totally agree with you on that one. But to me, it's curious to see the public reaction and what triggers the public and what does not.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm quite shocked by no one responding to, or at least not half as many people responding to the Shireen Baratheon scene. I literally felt sick seeing that.
Yeah, I couldn't watch that. I was.
I've had the strongest emotional reaction to that scene that I've had to any scene on Game of Thrones. I felt more nauseous about the death of Oberyn Martell, because that was just so physically gruesome. I could not see those images, but I could not hear her scream and continue with my dinner. That was.
Yeah, I totally agree with you on that one. That was by far the most challenging scene. It got me sick to my stomach.
Mm-hmm.
And by the way, kudos to the producers and director, because if they wanted to cause that reaction, they totally achieved their goal.
Yeah, it actually, I had to stop watching it for half an hour to be able to watch the rest, because I couldn't watch the rest of the because it happened halfway through as well, didn't it? I think episode 9, I suppose it was. Yeah, this is the penultimate episode, and I couldn't actually watch any more for about half an hour just to sort of let that sink in. So it was kind of like, yeah, it was interesting. I had the same reaction. I posted on the Facebook group about it, and yeah, so I had to sit back. Of course, it was this amazing scene, of course, with Daenerys, of course, and the fighting pits, which was another great scene in the movie, in the series. I thought that whole where the Masters of Marine, or whatever they're called, decided to suddenly turn on them. And of course, was it Drogo or Drogon arrived?
Dragon, I think.
Is it Dro? What's the dragon's name? I can't remember.
I think Dragon. I might be no
It's
Drogon.
Drogon.
There you go.
Drogon after
There you go.
after Khal
Drogon.
Drogo. Yeah.
Yeah. But I just wanted to talk about the attention to detail that the actors and the whole crew of Game of Thrones are putting into this TV show, and it definitely shows on the screen. For example, the Walk of Shame scene. It was shot over a period of 3 days.
Yeah, I heard.
And the actress who plays Cersei, Lena Headey, she actually chose a body double who would play the nude part, and she did so not necessarily because of some feeling of shame that she had, but she said that she needed to focus. She needed that focus on her facial expression to be able to transmit the emotion, and
Right.
being nude would have distracted her, and the attention to detail that they put into this. They auditioned how many I have? Oh, 1,000 applicants. I have
Wow.
it written here, and picked 7 finalists who were all flown to Belfast to meet with the producers. And then they picked this Rebecca Van Cleve, who was who did the scene, and the two actresses worked together to actually match the facial expressions of Cersei with the body expressions. And I read an article where they described this in detail, and the
Yeah.
amount of work that those people put into that scene is really something to be respected and admired.
Yeah, you could really get a sense of how she felt walking through that crowd of people in that situation. There was a real she obviously she really I mean it was really well acted, you know. I mean, even though in a sense there wasn't an awful lot, seemingly wasn't an awful lot to do, but I mean the way that the crowd were braying at her, you know, was you know, there's a really good it was really, you know, it wasn't just jeering, and you know, it was really vicious, you know, and you know, horrible. You can just imagine being there yourself. It was yeah, it was pretty intense. I sort of felt it was the only time I guess I kind of felt sorry for her. It's the only time I think in the whole season I actually felt sorry for her.
Yeah, I agree with that. I also felt pretty sorry for her. I never thought this would be possible, but and I love the character. I think she's doing a great. The actress is doing a great job with
Yeah.
that character. But I just wanted to talk about. Have you guys noticed the transformation of TV? Like the things that TV shows today, when everybody seems to complain about censorship, are pretty out there compared to what TV used to be like. I mean, we have incredible violence, incest, of course, rape, and blood, and everything that goes with that. But then we have, especially in that one scene, the Walk of Shame, we have nudity, cuss words, you name it, and it's penises, like everywhere you turn you see a penis. This was unacceptable on TV a while ago. And
HBO's been a kind of been a forerunner of that, because of course HBO were basically relied on subscriptions rather than advertising for their revenues. So they were able to do a lot of risque, avant-garde sort of stuff. I mean, their most famous show, I mean, their first show was The Sopranos, of course, which is another equally quite violent, graphically violent show. And they reckoned that stuff like The Sopranos would never have gone ABC or any of the mainstream television networks, because the advertisers probably wouldn't have allowed it.
yeah, of course, that's the freedom that comes from subscriptions and not being dependent on your advertisers. But I mean, there has been a transformation of TV, even AMC. If you think about it, I mean, they're not that far out there. However,
well, I think what's happened is HBO has set the bar has changed, has changed the bus, and now they realise that they can actually get away with some of these kind of scenes and stuff, and actually, so perhaps they're not as gratuitous as they are in HBO, but yeah, certainly there has been a marked change in how ordinary network TV, what kind of things they will show nowadays.
Oh,
They
yeah,
still can't
absolutely.
say the F word.
Yeah, I probably still can't say the F word. Yeah.
How many subscribers
C
does
word.
HBO have outside of the US? Because I feel maybe that's a bit of a difference, because I know for sure that Game of Thrones is downloaded all over the world, so that might make a bit of difference that they cater to a different audience.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, I mean, it's just something I remember. Like a journalist friend of mine over here who works for the Guardian, and when we were he introduced me to Sopranos back in whenever it was 2001, I think, when I first started watching it. And because I remember, like you, AD, I said to him, I said, how do they get away with this kind of? They're swearing, they're using the C word,
Yeah.
the F word. There's sex, there's nudity, there's pretty.
I mean,
crap
think
violence.
about the TV in the 80s. And
Oh,
think
God.
about what's American Gigolo, or the movie with what's his name, Richard Gere or Gere, when they show like this teeny tiny shot of his pee-pee, like
Right.
for a split of a second, and that was like, and it wasn't even on TV, it was on in the cinema,
movies.
in the
Right.
movies, and everybody was crazy, talked about it. They still talk about that scene as something out of the ordinary. And now we have, what do we have on TV? Everything goes, which
Right.
is fantastic. And what I don't understand is these are the times when people are complaining about censorship the most. Is our bar that much higher? Are we accepting less and less censorship, or what's going on there?
Well, yeah, well, look, I mean, one of the ideas that my friend had was that he said that it was probably down to the fact that HBO was a fairly kind of only had certain appeal, so people sub to it only. People only subscribed to it, the channel, and they paid a subscription, and so they didn't have a massive audience. They had enough of an audience to be able to create great shows and produce content that wouldn't necessarily get out on the, and also they made a lot of money. HBO made a lot of money on DVD sales back in those days, and used to sell their seasons of DVDs, and so there wasn't a lot. There was only it was only really a microscope. It was only like a very small segment of the TV viewing market, sort of thing. So it's fairly unknown by most people. Most people had never heard of Sopranos. I mean, the only reason I heard of it because my friend got it on DVD, and that was the only reason I got to listen to it, because we didn't actually have it on. I think they eventually started producing it on Sky British satellite television, but eventually, but yeah, and it's so it's fairly unknown. So it was able to get away with all that kind of stuff because it wasn't like the movies are in the big mainstream circles. If there's a swear word or a penis shot or something, everyone's going to hear about it. But no one was really interested in what HBO were doing because it was really kind of a niche audience, I guess. But I think that was international, I say, Pim, as it was national in America, But yeah, interesting. But now I think we've just become kind of more used to it, or the mainstream has started to embrace some of it, at least, But anyway, let's get back to Game of Thrones. Talk about marketing and HBO. So, yeah, we talked a bit about Stannis, haven't we? So, unless there's something else anybody really wants. I mean, I must admit, I liked Stannis' character, but I mean, of course, it completely fell apart after Shireen, of course. But there's any other particular characters that caught you? I mean, we got to talk about the White Walker scene, of course. I mean, that was what was that, episode 8, I believe. I mean, that was a great episode. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, there was it was one of the most chaotic and crazy fight scenes that we've seen in the Game of Thrones. I wonder how much money they put into visual effects in there. Because I think for a TV show they did a pretty good job at it.
Yeah, it was very good. No, really, I thought that was most. They actually eventually. I mean, they've kind of been bringing the White Walkers to life slowly but surely throughout each season. But this time, you really got a kind of yeah, they all came together there, you know, and clearly, you could clearly understand why Jon Snow was concerned about the White Walkers. I mean, they look like they're you know, they're a force to be reckoned with, you know. So it'll be interesting to see how they develop that story, especially now Jon Snow. Well, we don't know if Jon Snow's gone, of course, as we spoke before at the beginning, but we'll see. I guess certainly there's still going to be a lot happening there, I think.
One of the things that I read about, and I wanted to get Logan's and Pim's opinion because I know they both read the books. They were talking about how now the TV show has caught up with the books, and what can we expect from season 6? Are they gonna go ahead and just make up the story as they go if the books are not ready? And there were some opinions that were saying that a lot of the story, the side story like Bran and Hodor and other characters, a lot of the side story got pushed aside in this season, and maybe instead of going ahead with the story, we're going to catch up with what the other characters have done meanwhile, you know, in season 6. So maybe they're going to focus a lot more on the story of Bran and whatever other side characters I can't think right now who got left out this season. What do you guys think? Because you guys read the books.
Well, for Bran, they've actually pretty much got up to the end of his storyline in the books. But one thing that kind of bothered me about the show is that it almost spoiled the future of the books by showing which things didn't matter. Like Mance Rayder.
What do you mean by that?
Well, Mance Rayder in the show is just dead, but I think he's not in the book. They did some sort of trick, but he might have died again, like actually in the book, maybe. And then they had the whole thing with young Griff and Tyrion meeting that guy.
Don't spoil that though, because that is a storyline that the series hasn't really shown just yet. At least not all the cards of that storyline are on the table.
But it might just be that it won't matter, and the series is just skipping over it because.
No, I know the Griff storyline. Griff has been removed Griff has been merged with Daenerys, but there is more to that storyline that has already been talked about in the books that has not been talked about in the television series just yet.
Yeah.
But I think that's one of the only things. I think that for the most part, the series is either caught up with or surpassed the books.
And then there's a certain person in the Riverlands.
Yes, which we should have heard from like 2 seasons ago, which we haven't.
Yeah.
Maybe that storyline has been merged with.
Who's that? Sorry,
someone else?
A certain person.
You guys are way too cryptic for us right now.
No, we're having fun right now.
I know. At our expense, we're like, oh, what's going on? Who's that guy? What's going on?
So I suspect that if that storyline comes back, then I think it will be with a younger male character.
Right.
All right, I have
now
to
you've kind of
I am
lost me.
totally lost.
Oh yeah, I don't know how to tell Logan without telling you guys.
Oh, so that's why you're so cryptic. You're trying not to give us
Yeah, we're
any
trying not to
spoilers.
spoil. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I don't like any spoilers. So I was wondering, since you guys are into the books, and Pat and I are doing the second podcast about the Game of Thrones, what kind of fans are you? Because as far as I know and I read online, there are different distinct types of fans of the show. And I'm going to run you through a short list here and see which one you identify with the most. There's the fan who read all the books, more commonly known as the book snob, and I guess you kind of fit this category. There's the fan who loves the drama but hates the violence, or most commonly known as the freaked out fast forwarder fan. The fan that is quick with the quotes. Now, this fan seems to have a quote for everything, like a Lannister always pays his debts. That's the man who passes the sentence should swing the sword. The things I do for love, your joy will turn to ashes in your mouth. And of course, you know nothing, Jon Snow, being among the most common choices. And then there's the fan who can't remember any of the names. I used to be that fan until I actually read about the show and I got to read the names. The fan who stopped watching after the death of his favorite character. Now, usually this fan turned into a hater of the show, and you better not talk about the Game of Thrones around him. Then there's the fan who gets disgusted by the incest, but not by the murders. You know, you can hear this fan saying, for God's sakes, they're brother and sister. I mean, they're actually twins. Oh, and by the way, have you seen they cut the guy's dick off? That was a pretty cool scene. Then there's the fan who compares the Game of Thrones to actual history. And I fit in the last category, the fan who hates the magic stuff. And I imagine I sound something like this. Damn it! This show would be so much better without all the damn dragons, the unburnt Khaleesi's, and the stupid witchcraft of the red-headed bitch. So which kind of category do you guys think you fit in? What kind of fans are you?
Yes.
Yes, all of them?
I was the fan who read the books with a map open, and I was browsing the wiki very carefully while reading.
Oh, so you're kind of a mixture between the fan who read the books and the fan who finds historical similarities?
Maybe. I just wanted to actually understand what was going on and where things were happening.
Come on, man, own it. I would call that fan the brainiac.
Well, I don't know.
The man with the
about
brains.
comparing it to actual history, but
You mean what the wiki? You're looking at the story, right?
yeah, like the dedicated Song of Ice and Fire wiki.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah.
What about
So
you, Pat?
more in me, gosh. Yeah, I kind of fit it a little bit like you with the magic stuff at the beginning.
You're the one who can't remember the names. Come on, this is obvious.
Oh, well, there's that as well. I can't remember the names either, or I mispronounced the names, or some other thing. Yeah.
Oh, don't feel too bad. It took me forever, and I actually have them written down here. Otherwise, I'd be in trouble.
I still can't remember Lord Friendzone's name even now, and I saw him again. Watched the episode with him when he kidnapped Tyrion, of course, but I still can never remember his name.
Geez, now I can't remember it. It's come on.
Well, as I say,
It's really amusing how many people forget his name.
yeah.
Well, we keep calling him Lord Friendzone. Patrick branded him Lord Friendzone in the first conversation we had. Yeah, Mormont. That's no one.
Mormont, that's it. Yeah. Don't know why that's so hard to remember. But yeah. I think I probably fit between not remembering names. I'm much more into the drama. I guess I really like the drama.
But you hate the violence.
I'm
just kidding.
I don't know about hate the violence. I mean, I said some of it, like the Oberyn scene was just a little bit too much. But then in some ways, the violence just kind of highlights like you were saying earlier, the degrees of evil you were talking about earlier. I think in a sense, I kind of don't. I can sort of understand it as part of the narrative and of the story, but yeah, I don't find myself looking at those gruesome scenes. I mean, I always remember when I think when Gilly was in the last season, in season 4, Gilly was in that brothel or place where suddenly they got sort of taken over by these bunch of bandits, and it was that kind of really sadistic one, and I think it was. I couldn't watch that sword going through his head and coming out of his mouth, which was pretty grim. And that was another one, I think, from season 4. I think it was season 4. It may have been season 3 now. I can't remember now, but certainly, yeah, some of those scenes were too much to look at. But on the other hand, they kind of fitted with the characters or the situation, so it kind of made sense. Although a lot of people have been criticising this season, saying that this season was more gratuitous than was they felt a lot of people that have not necessarily complained about violence. These are people I talked to about the show, privately and stuff, and they seem to think it was more gratuitous than normal. I didn't feel that. I must admit. I don't know what you guys think. I mean, obviously, there were some pretty horrible scenes, but they weren't like that kind of Oberyn style kind of graphicness.
I actually only had a problem with Sansa's rape after, like a while after it happened, because as the storyline continued and then it merged with what happened in the books, I realized that they had only done it for shock value.
Right.
Because it wasn't even Sansa in the book. She was far away from Winterfell.
Right. That's actually, it's interesting you say that, Logan, because the people who have complained about the gratuitousness of it have all read the books, and I think that's kind of where they're seeing like unnecessary violence happening at times. So yeah, that's interesting. And I guess that probably goes for Shireen as well, and as well as Sansa and probably a few other people within this, at least in this particular season. What do you think, Pim?
Yeah, no, I think that's a great point by Logan, which is one of the reasons why I think the Theon mishaps, to say it lightly, are easier to stomach, because they serve a storyline that is both written quite well, even though it's terribly gruesome, but has also been acted quite well by all the actors involved. Like I think, I mean, you already mentioned that the actor who plays Ramsay, he does an amazing job, but I think Theon as well, because he's shown in this series several different faces of being top dog, as well as being the bottom wretched feeder. So all the actors involved are just doing an amazing job for all that, and so I guess it's a little bit easier to stomach than some of the other things that have happened that definitely seem to serve little purpose.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of Theon, what about Theon's latest awakening? I didn't see that coming when he pushes, I think her name is Miranda, Ramsay's friend. He pushes her and she falls. And he defends Sansa. That was quite shocking, because I thought this character will go on for the rest of the TV show, just being submissive.
Yeah, I'm curious why. Why now? Like
Well, is that in the books at all?
I don't think it is, because Sansa's not in the books right there.
Well, I think what happens in the book is that it sort of still happens, but he's kind of unwilling, because he does jump off the wall with the wife, who is Jane Poole in the book. But there were other things involved, and he didn't really turn on Ramsey. He was just kind of taken along for the ride.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Yeah, I mean, this seemed like a little bit out of the blue, doesn't it? Like suddenly, Theon's grown a pair of balls all of a sudden and decided to, save her. And of course, I don't know. I thought that last scene of them jumping off there, certainly after he just pushed Miranda off, perhaps a less of a height, and she obviously clearly died from that. I
Yeah,
just
but
gotta
they're
wonder.
supposed to jump in a pile of snow, I think,
Right. Yeah.
because it's been snowing all around the castle. So.
That's true. Yeah. Yeah.
That's quite a jump for a pile of snow. I don't know, the way they showed it in the movie. I don't care how much snow you got under there. If you jump from that height, you're pretty much done. But hey, it's Game of Thrones, so I'm looking forward to see how they're gonna
It's Ramsey.
take that story forward.
It's either Ramsey Snow or the snow.
Yeah.
Well, while we're talking about Ramsey, I've actually been playing the Game of Thrones video game, the storyline video game that's been published a while ago.
Yeah.
And Ramsey plays a significant part in the video game as well. And if anyone hasn't played, I can certainly recommend, because the story is well just as good as the rest of the series. Even though in the game the dialogue is a bit less, but Ramsey certainly. Huh?
After my experience with other Telltale games, I'm waiting for the entire thing to come out before I play it.
Right. Yeah, that's certainly a good idea, because I'm now 4 out of 6 episodes in, and I'm going to have to wait a long time for the other 2 episodes to come out.
Now, Pim, does the video game follow more the books or the TV show, or is like a blend between the two?
I have no idea, because it starts at the Red Wedding, and I'm only like about maybe a year further or something. But so it plays well along the lines where book and series were still pretty close together.
Well, yeah, it's kind of got to be about the show, because all the characters look like the TV actors, and Peter Dinklage certainly doesn't look like Tyrion in the books.
That's a good point. Yeah, it's probably gonna follow the series.
What do you mean? He doesn't look like Tyrion in the books. What are the differences? This is really interesting.
Well, Tyrion doesn't have a nose, right? Like his nose was cut off.
And he's got mismatched eyes, and he's even shorter, and he's just kind of hideous.
Yeah, and the even larger head.
Oh, really? So he doesn't have a nose since the beginning, or did he lose his? Does he lose his nose during the
at the
story?
Blackwater?
Oh, okay. So it wasn't that cut across his face. He just actually got his nose chopped off.
Yeah. Well, he got like a slice, and it took the nose with him, and he's got like this big scar and a missing nose.
Mm-hmm. Poor Tyrion.
You can't see me, but I'm like gesturing on my face for some reason.
Yeah, I love that character, and I was hoping to see more of him this season. He wasn't quite as present.
A funny thing about how they skipped over some stuff with Tyrion is that Tyrion and Varys had a conversation in the cart about Varys asked him, "Are you just going to spend the entire road to Volantis drinking and lamenting the how empty life is, and there's no reason to do anything?" And then Tyrion says, "Yeah, there's no real point." Because that's what he does in the book. He just spends a long time just drinking and whining on the way to Volantis, and they just skip over it.
Yeah, they find out. Sorry, go on.
No, I just wanted to mention that two of my favorite characters, my number one and my number two favorite characters, which is Littlefingers and Lord Varys, they didn't really have that much of an appearance this season, and I really miss them. Especially the conversations that used to happen between the two. Those were my favorite moments of the Game of Thrones.
Yeah, well, of course, hopefully we got that to look forward to in the next season, I guess.
Yeah, and it just crossed my mind the other day. I mean, if you look back to season 1, when Lord Varys talks to Ned Stark, and Ned Stark asks him, "Who do you serve, my lord?" And he says, "The realm." He seems to be the only character that is interested in serving the collective and the country or the realm. And isn't it?
He's not.
He's not? Okay,
No,
well.
he's not.
No, I was just thinking, like,
Damn him!
that's
away.
one
No
of the people
character
that
is. No one is. No one is.
no one is. But hey, I was just going with this idea, and I was thinking, this is the only character that doesn't really follow so blindly his self-interest, although you told me I'm wrong. And I was thinking, isn't it funny that that's the character without balls in the
Right.
in the season?
But I mean, wasn't he the one that I mean, there was that great speech by Littlefinger, of course. I don't know, second or third series, the ladder, and I think it was Littlefinger that was actually talking to Valeris. So yeah, and of course they were very much about trying to acquire power, I think, and being on the right side. And of course, Littlefinger literally puts his bets on everyone, a little bit like the Iron Bank,
Mm-hmm.
So.
But I have a question. What happened to Daenerys?
Oh gosh. Yeah,
Who are? I mean, are
She's
those the Dothrakis that are surrounding her there at the end? Like, who are those guys? I couldn't figure it out.
Those are Dothraki. The show ends at the exact same point as the book.
So they are Dothraki. They seemed like they were. I just wasn't sure.
Yeah, and it's actually the Khal of the Dothraki is one of the old blood riders of Khal Drogo. So it's one of the lords that used to serve her, sort of. But I'm not sure if it was one that was happy with her.
Yeah, I forgot about that.
Are they
it's
friendly?
It's called Jogo. So, well, we'll find out.
Oh, okay, yeah. No spoil. See, I always jump ahead.
But you say that was like at the direct end of the book, though, of course, Logan. So, of course, that was where the whole series supposedly ended.
Well, yeah, for Daenerys' final chapter ends at the exact same place as her final scene.
Okay. Yeah. Well, we've been going for about an hour and 10. I don't know if you guys have anything else you really want to talk about on it, or something some burning you want to talk about that we haven't talked about. Go for it, Otherwise,
Dorne. It was terrible.
Yeah.
And Jaime did absolutely nothing.
Oh gosh, yeah, the Jaime story, of course. Yeah, that was really, it was a bit of a sort of he was, and of course he's now coming back with a dead daughter, of course, just to add insult to injury to the whole thing,
Cersei's gonna be pissed.
She is, isn't she? She is. She's going to probably set her new zombie boyfriend on him, probably. Whoever that is.
Yeah, but is he a zombie, or is he just recovering? Because his eyes looked like the eyes of a person that got beat up. And
the funny thing is, and I'll let the guys jump in. The funny thing is, I saw the episode 3 today because I only got to watch 3 episodes, but episode 3 where Cersei sent out like a bouncy for like Tyrion's head, and of course these guys come back with all these dwarfs' heads, they've cut off and stuff like that. And the guy, and I'm hopeless with names. Hopefully Pim or Logan can help me here. But the scientist guy or the maester or whoever he is, that's put the mountain together or whatever. He wanted to keep that head for his experiments. So I don't know whether he stuck a dwarf's head on him or not, but well, who knows?
A dwarf head on the mountain?
Well,
That'd be quite something.
I'm pretty sure this doesn't happen, but I don't know if Pim will know about this, but Clegane Bowl get hype.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that, but I don't think it's gonna happen. It would be
Yeah, I
really
know.
cool though. We like the Mad Max Master Blaster character, but then just one person.
right. Yeah. But I mean, yeah. Do you think? I mean, I don't know. Is this magic? Because the thing is with Game of Thrones, is it does veer into magic. So I'm wondering whether it is just fucking, it's like Frankenstein or something. He's just sort of, I don't know. He's done some crazy magic voodoo on the mountain's arse, and that's it. He's come back to life. But or whether he did, save his life or managed to sort of, he's certainly not in the same frame of mind he was before he went into the ring with Oberyn. But so I don't know. I guess we'll find out in the next series. So yeah. So guys, I don't know. We can finish up here, and yeah, I think I'm really looking forward to the next series. And I mean, thanks for your thoughts on it. It's been a really interesting conversation. Something I think that. There's always stuff, and we'll probably chime up and go, oh, I wanted to talk about that. But yeah, I mean, it's a great series, and I'm really looking forward, irregardless of some of the perhaps disappointments with some of the series, and like as Pim's mentioned and I've mentioned, but yeah, still an exciting series to look forward to, I think. But I think we'll call it quits here. So yeah, thanks guys, and thanks to the listeners. I think there's 6 or 7 of you, so cool.
See you next year.
Yeah, next year.
Thanks for joining, guys, and thank you for listening. And we'll come back with the Game of Thrones next year, definitely.
Yeah, for sure.